Okay, everybody. Hi, we are Team Innovangst. I'm Mike Darche.
I'm Ryan Fish.
I'm Arana.
I'm Courtney Taylor.
And Tripp, Ateyeh.
Like every other group in this room, we were tasked with the question of improving health and well-being of students at Notre Dame. But we're a diverse group, and we thought this question was a little vague. So how does one define health and wellness, and how might we improve those things? So the solution to these questions we found in a 5-step design thinking process from empathy to define, ideate, prototype, and test. And so first we'll walk you through empathy, or how we got to know our users.
Okay, so the goal of the empathy phase is to see the world through the perspective of Notre Dame students and to understand what health and well-being look like from their perspective. So we used the user context exercise to develop a profile for the typical Notre Dame student, and we came up with Average Abby. So Average Abby lives in a dorm on campus, and just like the rest of us, she has a busy schedule, lots of classes, and tries to balance her academic workload with extracurricular involvement and also maybe still trying to have a social life. She has a strong drive to succeed, but she also often feels overwhelmed and stressed out at all of the things on her plate. She has so much to do in so little time. And so we considered Average Abby's environmental context and realized that there's several angles that we could approach the question of improving Notre Dame students' health and well-being, such as helping students to manage their academic demands, helping them to develop healthy nutrition and fitness habits, helping them to actually use the resources that are available to them on campus. And we then conducted ethnographic interviews with 25 Notre Dame students, and some of our key takeaways from that were that a lot of upperclassmen, specifically seniors, expressed regret at some of the habits that they had developed earlier in their college years, and they wanted to go back in time and tell their freshman selves things that they've learned over their past 4 years of experience here. We also saw that the transition to college was generally a difficult time for everyone, and specifically freshmen told us that the current first-year studies program has room for improvement, specifically within the health curriculum. So here's a quick video with some highlights from those interviews. We did just check the volume on this.
I thought the transition
There we go.
High school to college was kind of tough. It was definitely a lot harder to get as high grades as I did in high school, and I really had to change my study habits.
During first semester, I totally had no idea how to make a schedule for myself. It was really important to get into a routine, and at first I would forget assignments and hang out with friends or spend too much time at the dining hall. So I think it's important to learn how to schedule yourself every day.
Contemporary topics in gym don't do anything for me. I'd much rather take a class that actually means something to me. Those two I didn't learn anything out of.
Contemporary topics I felt didn't really help. So I think it was a waste of the 40 minutes that I had to spend in that class when I could spend studying and doing work on my own.
What do you mean, what a resource? Yeah. Hey, Liam, what you mean? You got dining on food resource? I don't know.
Okay, so we then did a user picture study and popular media scan. And some of what we learned from that were that Notre Dame students tend to manage stress in unhealthy ways, and that there's a general sentiment that it's impossible to do it all. There's so much on our plates that it's really not easy to balance all of those. And so you can see from this post on the Notre Dame Confessions Facebook page that is exemplifying that sentiment. And we also saw that students tend to recognize that their habits are unhealthy, but they might not necessarily be motivated to change them. So here's a collection of Instagram posts from Notre Dame students who seem to be almost showing off their unhealthy habits to the public. And again, similar themes come across in these tweets. Okay, so now Dawn is going to tell you a little bit more about the next phase in our design process.
Thanks. So I'm going to talk to you about the design process. So based on our interviews, we were able to identify and target 5 areas of student health and well-being that need to be targeted. So for academic, we noticed that students maintain a high pressure try to keep the same level of success achieved in high school, and they also have to learn how to cope with no longer being at the top of the class. So this can cause a lot of stress for students, and they struggle with mainly their first year. For the social aspect, having a complete stranger as a roommate can signify a lot of change, and they have to adapt to dorm life, as well as learning to discern between positive and negative peer influences such as drinking. Physical aspect is to maintain fitness independently with an athletic team commitment. Most students were athletes in high school, and coming here to Notre Dame as non-athletes can be something very difficult because they don't have the commitment anymore, so they don't have any motivation to work out because they simply don't have any repercussions if they don't, and they just don't like it. So for the mental aspect, we targeted managing stress, adjustment difficulties, depression, anxiety, and most importantly, teaching them how to find help. Because there are resources available, but they just don't know how to find them or how to look for them. The nutritional aspect is making healthy food choices and learning how to eat with a healthy meal plan. Students create bad habits and they end up eating pizza at 3 a.m. in the morning. And when they do go to the dining hall, it's one of the best dining halls in the country, so they have a really hard time choosing healthy foods. For user personas, we noticed that in each of the 5 areas of health, students tend to form habits as freshmen that they keep throughout college. So in order to classify them, we made two important distinctions. The autonomous, which is impressionable personalities, and well-rounded versus narrow-focused personalities. Our first personality is a specialist. A specialist is someone that's highly autonomous, but has a narrow focus. They do what they like, but they only stick to one thing. Whether it's reading or leg day, they'll just do that thing and they just stick to it. Our balance is a self-starter persona, someone that's autonomous and well-rounded. This is generally someone that enjoys what they do, whether it's yoga, volunteering. They're passionate about it, and they're going to keep doing it because they like it. They're also very well-rounded and maintaining a balanced lifestyle, whether it's studying, working out, eating healthy, or hanging out with friends. Our tunnel vision is someone that has a narrow focus, but doesn't have much autonomy. So there's a perfect example, dad who wants me to be a doctor just like him. It's someone that has his mindset into something, but it's usually influenced by someone that's not himself. The yes man is someone that's well-rounded and impressionable. It's someone that tries to do too much just so it looks good on their resume. So it's generally someone that's very stressed out, or someone that does what their friends do because he or she doesn't want to be left out. So based on our interviews, we were able to classify our interviewees into our personalities. We noticed that only 4 upperclassmen fell into our target persona, which is the balance and self-starter. This is how we were able to identify our unmet need, which is how to help freshmen achieve a balance and autonomy, which again reinforces our theory that habits created as freshmen carry out throughout college. So how can we make the specialist, the tunnel vision, and the yes man persona shift to the balance and self-starter personality? How might we help Notre Dame freshmen navigate a transition from high school to college and develop a foundation for lasting health and well-being? That is what we're trying to figure out. So now Tripp's going to tell you more about it.
Thank you, Don. All right, so up until this point, we spent the majority of our time talking about how we're going to understand and define our problem, our customers, and frame the issue, essentially. Now we're going to move forward in the process to the ideation phase. And really all that ideation means, it's simply creating new ideas. The key to this phase, and really the hardest part for I'm assuming most people, especially us, was trying to balance generating as many ideas as we can, all the while deferring our judgment and not latching on to good ideas too early in the process. So we started off with brainstorming. We really tried to look at something that fits our how might we objective, appeals to freshmen, and can be implemented within 1 year, and try to find the middle ground between that. And from there, we generated about 30 new ideas, everything from a freshman mentor program, digital food measurement systems in the dining halls, course credit limits to new freshmen, and improved fitness facilities in the dorms. And from here, 4 ideas stood out to us as ones that really most closely fit our area we were trying to focus on. After brainstorming, we moved on to our subject matter expert interview and met with 3 very helpful first-year studies advisors. And these advisors are experts for a specific reason. They're closest to the freshmen. They understand their problems, the opportunities. And on top of this, they're also the gatekeepers for any change in the area. They're the kind of the first round of people we need to talk to and get buy-in from. And because of this, they were able to guide us through looking at a bunch of the ideas we come up with They helped us figure out not only which ones were relevant and exciting, but also which ones were possible. And so from here, we were able to rule out a few options and really come up with our front runner, which was a new and improved contemporary topics.
Prototype phase. As Tripp just mentioned, we used our expert interviews and some of our brainstorm ideas to narrow our focus on the contemporary topics. Our goal now is to rebuild the curriculum to be more relevant for students. It's going to increase their awareness and their engagement, as well as become something much more easy to implement from an administrative standpoint. So seniors here, if you're like us, you probably don't remember anything from contemporary topics. We seriously sat down, we tried to brainstorm what we learned. Nobody could come up with anything. And from our interviews, we found it's outdated, standardized. You learn a lot of dated and old material from an old exercise textbook. You're getting lectures from gym teachers who might have 30 years on you. It just didn't make any sense. And we found it was a waste of time. So our new solution is to take something that the freshmen already have, contemporary topics, it's in their schedule, they have to take it, and make it something relevant and individualized, something that they can relate to and have some kind of say in the process. We want it to be interactive and taught by upperclassmen mentors as well as the usual suspect gym teachers. And that would make it a much more valuable experience for the freshmen. So to bring this vision to our users, we built a tree diagram of our value chain. And this covers everything from the administrative point of view down to the end user freshman. And so it's tough to see here, but all those pink squares represent freshmen, the blue are the upperclassmen mentors, and the oranges are your Fran McCanns and Denise Garausis of the usual PE teaching scheme. So this new class would be directed towards freshmen in their second semester. That gives them 3-4 months to identify the problem areas and where they can improve. And they'd be able to choose from a list of about 10 modules with 6 different areas that they want to focus on. It'd be like study habits, communicating with your professors, it could be eating healthy, or even working on your time management. So these freshmen fill out a survey when they Dart, and they're grouped into smaller clusters of students who want similar things. You might not have all 6 of your modules, but the fact that you have some sort of say in the matter is huge. And then the administrator behind it will group the upperclassmen who are interested in teaching it and the usual gym teachers who are currently teaching it into different categories and base them on their students' interests. So this module would meet just as it does now, about 45 minutes to an hour every week, twice a week. And you'd have a much more interactive experience.
So we moved into the final phase of the innovation and design process, which is the test phase. What we first did is we brought our final prototype, as Mike just detailed there, and we brought it back to our end user customers, the freshman students, those who participated in our earlier surveys. Because as all of us know, the end user is what it's all about. You want the end user bought in. Their feedback is the most valuable feedback you can get. We spent a lot of time in the dining halls and the fun interviewing students and showing them this prototype and asking them what they thought, what would make the process even better. It led to a lot of great information that allowed us to further prototype this out and make an even better end product that we'll get to in a little bit. Some of these ideas that we liked is a confirmation that upperclassmen teaching the modules will be relevant and make the class more exciting and informative. Another great suggestion that we hadn't thought about was changing the actual name of the course itself. Another suggestion was the small group approach. That would be a little bit more interactive and interesting than just showing up to a lecture every day and having someone talk to you for an hour. And then again, probably the best insight we got from our question and answer sessions with this prototype was that the content should evolve each year. If there was a particular subject area of interest that students felt wasn't covered, they could tell them, and then next year when the iteration of the class comes out, they cover that topic, and it would keep the content fresh and engaging. So taking the step even further, we did some solution evaluation, and we did a survey. Just kind of trying to get some hard numbers on what people thought of this and eliciting more feedback. 100% of the students we surveyed agreed that contemporary topics need to change, which is something we have previously found before. On an average scale of 1 to 5, they ranked their satisfaction with contemporary topics as a 2.9. And with 1 being kind of the most boring, least useful class you've ever taken, 5 being an extremely engaging and interesting class, it fell just below the middle. And then additionally, in terms of further testing this out, we asked the survey participants if they would be willing to act as those student mentor leaders that would be crucial to this class evolving, actually becoming a reality. And 26 out of the 32 of them expressed interest in doing so for reasons such as actually getting paid and being a paid teacher or assistant, and then also to build resume experience and skills for their upcoming careers. And then, coincidentally, we were doing some more popular media scanning. We found a report that Northwestern recently published on this exact question. They studied how this material that's basically presented in contemporary topics, what was the most effective format for presenting this information. They did a comparison between a small individualized group session with an upperclassman leader, and then the standard was their current format, which is a large lecture with someone who wasn't a peer of all these freshmen. And they found that the freshmen who were in the class that was smaller, more engaging, and taught by an upperclassman, they had higher GPAs and better psychological outcomes during their first semester of college due to the format of the class here. So we took all of that and used this research and everything else we collected, all that feedback, to create our final design, which Tripp will now describe to you. We renamed it FIT, or First Year Transitions.
Thank you, Ryan. And now for our final product, first year transitions. So the first year, the cycle for this course, and cycle is an emphasized word as we'll get to in a minute, but the cycle for this course will begin with the feedback we collected from our earlier interviews. So everything from the freshmen really discussing their pain points to the tips the seniors wish they could go back and give themselves earlier in college. And we'll utilize this feedback to come up with our initial offerings that'll be based around the 5 focus areas we discussed earlier. From here, students are going to pick 6 modules that they'll take for their classes. Here are just a few examples of them. They'll be taught, like we just discussed, by a combination of student teachers and relevant experts. It's really not going to be set in stone. It's whatever makes most sense for that course. And then after completion of these courses, the students are going to take an exit survey, and the feedback from that will be utilized to go into developing the following year's offerings. So the keystone for the success of our course, the continued success of this course, is utilizing the students' feedback to continually iterate and improve upon this process, and not making it a stagnant, set-in-stone thing, but really continuing to evolve each year. So thank you very much, guys, and we'll now open it up to questions.
You guys had a good transition leading throughout the presentation. And really, no one can remember any takeaways from the first year studies, or were you facetious?
Honestly, very little. I think we were actually sitting at our table the first day, and we're sitting there arguing about, we were talking about first year contemporary topics. We were talking about, we had the mentor, everyone I think had a student mentor at some point you had to meet with for one class. Half the group was arguing they had to do it, half the group didn't remember doing it at all. To talk about kind of your choices, not like your personal choices, but about your academic choices and stuff like that. I remember I had to do one meeting, and I think most of the kids in my dorm did as well. We were pretty split on whether to do that or not. So it was.
Yeah, what was that? We remembered some of the activities that we did in contemporary topics, but there were no takeaways that affected our choices that we made throughout college. So that was really what we meant by we didn't remember anything meaningful from that course.
Okay, and then the feedback on the final design, by and large, what was the sample size for that?
32.
Yeah, 32.
Yeah,
I think we got 32 responses from it.
Okay, and positive feedback on the redesign?
Very positive. I think we had 100% of people that said they wanted some form of redesign. And then when we went and actually showed them what we were working on, a lot of people seemed pretty excited about getting to be in charge of and personally responsible for the kind of classes they would take and the kind of things they would get to learn and work on.
Okay.
Yeah, just hearing about this and never having been in that course, but several people mentioned it seems to be kind of low-hanging fruit. What kind of feedback did you get from your subject matter experts on the idea of revamping this course?
I think so. Ryan and I were the two that went into the interview with the subject matter experts. And like we said, they were very helpful. This idea, we didn't come in with this and slide it across the table and here's what we're doing, sign off on it and tell us you like it, because that wouldn't have been very useful for us. We kind of came in with a number of ideas we identified as strong possibilities and just try to start asking some open-ended questions. And I think they're pretty excited about the opportunity. Like we said, this was one of the ones they helped guide us to being the most plausible, the most useful idea. And they seem to be, speaking for you, but I think they seem to be behind changing this as a possibility.
Subject matter.
Can you talk more about your thought process for having second semester instead of first semester? My specific question is, do you feel like potentially you let them create bad habits just to undo them as opposed to, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So I can say, and again, this comes from our interview Ryan and I did, I initially was on the same boat as you were. I thought, oh, it's an easy answer. First semester, let's get a hold of them before they can start even forming these bad habits. But again, in that interview, they helped give us some insights that I don't think we would personally come to, being that give them a few months to fail and figure out where they're going to fail so they can really get more out of the course when you give it to them. They'll know the areas that they need improvement on. If you ask me personally coming into it, there's a lot of things I would not have identified that I would have needed help on. One of them being, I think most of us came out of high school being top of the class, and you come in Notre Dame, and you kind of have to fall on your face a few times before you figured it out. And so I think the thought process was let them fail, figure out where they need help, and then second semester they'll be a little more engaged in the course possibly.
I would also say you find the freshmen in the second semester have a much greater self-awareness than they do first semester. And I think you think you've got it all figured out when you walk through the doors freshman year. And I think, as you're saying, you fall, you get back up, but it's just a process and it's a growth process. And I think second semester is more effective in terms of their openness to trying new things and to be, being willing to say this isn't working. So how can I go about, improving the process?
I do want to comment your last idea about the exit surveys and using that to reshape and reform. I just want to say that's, to me, in the innovation process, one of the most important things, because the first round is not going to be what you want, but if you keep evolving it and changing it, it'll just get better and better and better. So that way of getting that feedback is a very effective approach.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I was curious about your reactions to when you first announced that the scope all changed beginning with the class of 2015, coming in 2015, and the curriculum has been set up and approved. And I wondered how, as you looked at that, if you looked at that, how it lines up with what you proposed.
Yeah, so we actually saw that article as we were putting together our final presentation. We were all together in the library practicing, and one of our team members brought that and said, look at this, they're actually implementing our idea. So we were really excited about that. I think that speaks to the point that this is actually feasible and can be implemented because it is being implemented. But at the same time, there were things about the program that is going to be implemented that are different from what we proposed, such as the upperclassmen teaching. And so we think that as the new contemporary topics course is implemented in the fall, that maybe some of our suggestions can be taken into account so it can be improved in the future.
A lot of it depends on the students because those new students won't know what the old contemporary topics course is like, right? But if we were able to factor in a survey of some sort that could take some of our ideas or some potential topics that maybe that course didn't cover and see where they stand on those issues, then perhaps the next semester or the next year we can push in some new changes. But we all agree that I think the freshmen should have some sort of say in the matter because at least the contemporary topics course that we have now doesn't cover the issues that are really applicable to Notre Dame students. It could be overarching, it might just be extremely outdated, but it needs to have some sort of emphasis on the freshmen who are actually taking the course and trying to apply these things in their lives.
Thank you.